At this point, it looks like we're going to be very hard-pressed to meet the time deadline. I don't believe that the finalization of any of the procedures has taken place. We're still optimistic, of course. We still have a few minutes to a few hours. But at this point, it's going to be very, very close.
Unlike its neighbors, this sleepy little northeastern Oklahoma community of about 15,000 doesn't depend on oil and gas or agriculture. Miami, Oklahoma is a manufacturing town. 41 years ago today, the B.F. Goodrich plant opened its doors and put nearly 2,000 people to work. But declining markets and foreign imports have steadily eaten away the profits. Tonight, the plant will close.
It has to be considered as a crushing blow, but we'll survive. You remove $60 million payroll from a community of 14,237 people, and you've removed a significant amount of revenue.
But all is not lost. The owner of a Pennsylvania tire company is working to secure financing to buy the plant. Goodrich has given Mountain Tire until today to come up with the money. The townspeople are cautiously optimistic.
I'm in business in Miami. I believe in Miami. I'm a hometown person in Miami, and I have to feel that everything looks good.
Well, everybody depends on it, or a lot of people depend on it, so...
Will it be saved?
I hope so.
This is called Hands Across Miami. 5,000 people are here, not to complain about today's closing, but to look to the future. The key word now is hope. Hope Mountain Tire can come up with the money to buy the plant, and hope this display of unity will prove to someone somewhere that Miami, Oklahoma is deserving of a manufacturing plant. At its peak, the B.F. Goodrich plant employed nearly 2,000 people. But foreign imports and a declining market for the big industrial tires this plant produced signaled the end. This sleepy little northeastern Oklahoma town of about 15,000 hasn't given up hope, at least not yet. William Jung, president of Mountain Tire, wants to reopen the plant. But Goodrich had only given him until today to come up with the financing. And according to the mayor, things don't look good at this late hour.
At this point, it looks like we're going to be very hard-pressed to meet the time deadline. I don't believe that the finalization of any of the procedures has taken place. We're still optimistic, of course. We still have a few minutes to a few hours. But at this point, it's going to be very, very close.
This is Hands Across Miami. Hundreds of people, including former B.F. Goodrich employees, rallied here late this afternoon. Even though these people know the future is uncertain, they gathered to show unity. Tonight, the key word in Miami is hope. Hope financing to reopen this plant comes through, and hope this display of support proves to someone somewhere that Miami, Oklahoma is deserving of a manufacturing plant. Kurt Autry, News 4, Miami, Oklahoma.
The 1968 Franco Zeffirelli production of Romeo and Juliet came under fire after it was shown to some Edmond ninth graders. Those upset with the film objected to brief nude scenes, and especially to a scene where Romeo, thinking Juliet is dead, commits suicide. A committee decided the film would no longer be shown in the classroom. But tonight, supporters of the film told the Edmond School Board that removing the film from the classroom was censorship.
I came here from West Virginia, where I saw a similar thing take place that has taken place here. And I tell you, as surely as I stand here, that unless you do something about this, and do it soon, your curriculum will be picked to pieces.
And whereas we believe that the action taken by the Edmond Schools Mid-High Ad Hoc Due Process Committee to ban the optional film Romeo and Juliet from the Edmond Public Schools is an act of censorship and against the welfare of students, teachers, librarians, and all citizens.
Some school officials defended the decision, saying Romeo and Juliet could be taught without the film and that it could still be viewed outside the classroom.
The FMHA has already sent out 1,700 delinquency notices to state farmers, including 470 notices of intent to take adverse action. These are on loans in which payments haven't been made in 3 or more years. The moratorium on foreclosures has been lifted, but that is a last resort action. The new regulations offer alternatives, everything from paying the loan up to date to restructuring to giving it up. And the judge has included an appeals process for farmers. Still, his decision has stirred plenty of concern.
All right, let me work on this for you. And if I may have your telephone number.
The Oklahoma AgriLink, the toll-free farm crisis hotline operated by the Oklahoma Council of Churches and volunteers through donations, has been building a steady increase in calls and referrals since its inception last October. There was a sizable increase this morning.
I just finished with a telephone call a few moments ago from an FMHA borrower who had received a letter, and his intention was not to destroy himself, as you know, the suicidal cause that comes in, but to destroy someone else.
Mona Brock convinced the farmer over the phone the letter wasn't the end of the world. She and her husband know well the current heartache in farming. They had a sellout last July. The new regulations may eventually clear the air concerning FMHA problem loans, but there is a patchwork of other lending agencies dealing in the agricultural area, much like the various farm policies since the Depression, which have helped contribute to the current problem. Getting out will be easier said than done. George Tomic, News 4.
Anyone here from the other pawn shop?
They didn't have to buy us merchandise. You swap meets. If this thumbprint was going to solve a bunch of burglaries and all, beautiful, that would be fine. They cannot prove it. They can't show it. I cooperated with Spencer. I cooperated with Midwest City. They didn't have to have all this.
Well, they cut my electric off, and just because somebody was tampering with the meter, they want me to pay for it.
And I've been using candles for electricity, for lights and stuff. It's been me and my daughter, we're on welfare, you know. We're trying to make it, and now this happens to us. We have nothing.
It is the work of 15 very ability to enact you, the legislature, permanent, as a permanent matter, it does require legislation as a legal. In child custody cases, in child support cases, in small claims cases, they're using mediation. And they're finding that not only do they speed the process, but that the litigants or the people that are involved have a feeling of a better feeling concerning the outcome.
Those are two things we can do that we should be able to pass, I hope, this year. The natural gas battles have been fought actually for the last 30 years, but with gas prices so low as they are today, now's the time to repeal it.
In 1985, tornadoes killed 92 people in the United States. But a network of new radars may help reduce that number. The information gained from this Doppler radar in Norman will be used to set up a network of smaller Doppler radars throughout the country. Today, meteorologists were shown the latest technology from the Severe Storms Lab, which will be used in a program called NextRad.
We were working since 1964 on the development of Doppler radar, and these two 10-centimeter systems that we have represent state-of-the-art technology and were the inspiration for the national program.
What we're doing really is kind of breaking new ground.
Today, KTVY Chief Meteorologist Jim Williams spoke about last year's storm season when Channel 4 received the Doppler image. Again this year, Channel 4 will be working with the National Weather Service as well as the Severe Storms Lab to bring Oklahomans the latest in severe weather information. Dan Threlkeld, News 4.
The falling price of oil has meant a gas war at service stations. Throughout the state, gas has fallen way below $1 a gallon. While that's good for motorists, it is nothing but bad news for the people involved in the oil business. And it is beginning to have a detrimental effect on those who depend on oil royalty checks as part of their income. Ralph Long is a Garvin County farmer. He has about 9 wells on his farmland. He, like many other farmers, had counted on royalty checks to help out a bad farm economy. But now royalty checks are getting smaller, and some wells are closing up altogether.
Our checks have just been dwindling down to nothing, you know. We're not getting enough to even figure on getting much of a check anymore. It's just bad. A lot of the oil companies have gone bankrupt and had to come in and plug the wells, and when there's oil there.
What Long and other royalty owners want is a tax on foreign oil to help prop up the price at home, keeping oil companies in business and royalty owners getting their checks.
A lot of farmers will go under, and a lot of people will be very disturbed because of the situation. They just don't know how they're going to make it if the oil situation is not changed from the way it looks like it's going right now.
The National Association of Royalty Owners estimates that its members could lose $270 million because of the falling oil prices. Royalty owners say they feel like they are the forgotten victims of the oil crunch and say they want the people in Washington to know they're hurting too. Jeff Fowler, News 4, near Pauls Valley. So far, milk from dairies in Oklahoma and 2 other states has been destroyed because it was contaminated with the pesticide heptachlor. The chemical, which was found in feed given to dairy cattle, is suspected of causing cancer and liver disease. But tracking all of the tainted grain is now the biggest problem. The State Health Department labs have been working overtime testing milk from Oklahoma dairies to see if the contamination goes beyond what has been found. So far, only products processed at the Farm Fresh plant in Ponca City have been found to be contaminated. And health officials believe all of the problem milk has been removed from store shelves.
So I think it's probably being removed from the shelves pretty readily as far as I can tell at this point. Our county sanitarians are spot checking just to make sure that is the case.
The potentially contaminated product can be identified by looking for 2 things on the container. First, the plant number, 40-44, found on the label or embossed on the carton. That's combined with the expiration date of March 18th. But for some consumers like Bobby Fry, the promise of a refund for the product is not enough. Ms. Fry wonders how long the pesticide-tainted milk may have been on the market before it was discovered.
How big a health hazard has it been for this period of time of this milk? My interest was I wanted to find out how long this has been going on and why are we just now finding out about it.
One question remains, how to keep something like this from happening again. Health officials admit they can't test all the feed fed to cattle. What they may have to do instead is test dairy milk more often and check specifically for pesticides. Jeff Fowler, News 4 at the State Health Department.
Barry? No, is he here? Yeah.
If indeed public safety is one of the highest priorities that government can provide, then I think we have a responsibility to set corrections to one side and say, in the name of public safety, we have to find ways not to close prisons and not to reduce the staffing pattern to the point where we endanger Oklahoma citizens that we ask to work in the prisons.
I know it was a long time.
A lady had some transient, for the better lack of words, trying to get into her house. She wouldn't let him in. She got scared, went to phone, called her husband. And while she was on the phone, the transient was beating on her window, yelling for her to let him in. Well, she didn't let him in. And the next thing that she was able to determine, at this point we found out, was she found her husband and the transient about 3 doors down in the yard.
Here to talk to us about the whole thing that's happening in Central America, the Nicaraguan situation. As you know, there's a talking about this thing is the largest body of religious folks in our country.
And of aid for the freedom fighters in Nicaragua. That will be an up or down vote. And depending on how the House of Representatives votes, we'll know how well the president and we who work for him have gotten the message through to the American people that this is something essential for the national security of the United States and for human rights in Central America.
When shoppers got their first peek of the new Sanger Harris store today, they were treated to an atmosphere more suited to Mardi Gras than a department store grand opening. There was a band and a buffet table, but this party may be premature. Producing successful sales figures in a city where many retail outlets have failed won't be easy. Sanger Harris executives know that, but they believe they can weather Oklahoma City's turbulent economic climate.
We're delighted to be here. We think this is probably a more difficult and challenging time for us to be here, but given the choice of being here and not being here, we're so pleased to be here.
And it appears customers are glad Sanger is here too. This new department store fills the void left by the demise of the John A. Brown chain. And even though Sanger Harris executives are aware of the limitations of the city economy, plans to build a third store at Penn Square are still in the works. At Quail Springs Mall, Kurt Autry, News 4.
Run it there in front of their car, 2 or 3 feet.
We are looking at it as a beating death at this time. We have no suspects. Medical examiner indicates that the person has been dead since at least yesterday evening.
If we can repeal the Fuel Use Act, it would really help the Oklahoma economy. It would mean that we'd be selling a lot more Oklahoma gas, we'd be moving a lot more. That means a lot more royalty payments for royalty owners. It means a lot more severance tax for the state of Oklahoma. It means jobs for our producers. It's just an artificial constraint that was passed by the Carter administration. It needs to be repealed.
Serious athletes like high school, college, and professional athletes understand fully the value of getting their bodies into condition before they even begin to participate in the sport in which they're interested. Now, there's lots of other folks who really want to participate in sports but don't know much about how or the value of this preparatory conditioning. These are the folks that sooner or later end up with some sports-related injuries. Now, who are these folks?
You and me, the weekend warrior, the people that are out there running around the streets, looking for something to play, trying to get in shape, physical fitness nuts, people that want to have fun.
A good exercise program is really a great idea, but you got to work up to it. Also, once you get in shape, there's a point beyond which each individual cannot go without getting into trouble and therefore getting into a whole lot of injuries and other problems that we refer to as the overuse syndromes.
You don't see an overuse syndrome in a child. It doesn't exist. The reason it doesn't exist is because they seem to know when to quit.
Treat yourself with the wisdom of a child. Don't overdo it. It took you a long time to get out of shape, and it's going to take you a while to get back in shape. Now, as your body becomes more accustomed to increased physical work, then it too will be able to take on more and more activity. Next time, we'll look at some specific overuse injuries. I'm Dr. Red Duke. Now, if you've ever been involved in any kind of exercise program at all, no doubt you're quite familiar with the phenomenon of sore muscles. Now, that isn't a lot of fun, but it's just your body telling you that you made enough progress to get a little better, to grow a little bit. But there are some other problems that can be truly classified as amateur sports injuries. One such injury is known as tendonitis. A tendon is a piece of dense, white, tough tissue that connects a muscle to a specific point on a bone. It doesn't have its own blood supply. It's surrounded by a sheath called the peritoneum, which supplies the blood, which brings the nutrients to keep the tendon alive. When this sheath becomes inflamed, it causes tendonitis.
Tendonitis hurts when you move the tendon. So a person with Achilles tendonitis has trouble walking, and the pain is right over the tendon in the back of their heel, and it occurs with every step.
Tendonitis can occur anywhere that you have a tendon, but the most common areas are the heel, the shoulders, and the outside of the elbow. Aspirin is a good medication to help relieve this soreness and pain, and ice is always a good idea. So just start slow and let your bones catch up with the rest of your body. I'm Dr. Red Duke. Now, Charlie and Larry obviously know what they're doing, but the amateur athlete has a couple of problems that may get him in trouble. Too much enthusiasm and too little experience. If you get involved in an activity like weightlifting, too little experience with too much enthusiasm can cause a lot of problems. Now, if you really get serious about a weight training program, the first thing you need to do is find a qualified instructor.
They need to have good supervision. They have to be taught the techniques and supervised to make sure that they're doing it, because it's really tempting when you're trying to lift a lot of weight to cheat on your technique to get the weight up.
They don't simply bend over at the waist. They squat down perfectly, keeping the back erect, shoulders higher than the hips.
Without proper warm-up, without proper technique and supervision, the amateur weightlifter is going to get hurt just as sure as you're listening to him.
The most vulnerable part of the body is the back, the low back, and you can get anything from muscle strain to fractures to slipped discs.
Another important way to prevent such injuries is to abide absolutely by a very important weightlifting rule.
I don't believe in working out by yourself. You have that spotter there, he's going to lift out for you. He's going to help you, especially in a critical situation.
If you're going to get involved in a weightlifting program, take it seriously and do it right. I'm Dr. Red Dew.